Now we go to Pi Hakiroth, between the gorges and Baal Zephon. This is the body of water. This is the area where the children of Israel crossed. And found in this body of water, after Israel gave back the Sinai Peninsula, was this coral-encrusted 6-boat chariot wheel. Now let me explain something about this particular chariot wheel. First of all, any artifact, any remnant of Pharaoh's chariots and army, after 3,500 years, would have long dissolved in this saltwater environment. There would be nothing left. However, the Creator created coral with a very specific property. Coral does not begin to grow on sand or silt. It has to have an artifact to attach to. And coral many times will form to the exact shape of the artifact. The artifact will then erode away, and all that will be left is coral, basically stone, that is the exact image of what was left behind. Sometimes coral will continue to grow and will just grow into reefs that are miles. But many times it will just grow to cover the artifact, and it will stop. Just like that. This particular artifact was taken out of the Red Sea. It was taken to Cairo, Egypt, to the Department of Antiquities, where it was then assembled on an 8-foot table. The director of the Department of Antiquities came in, and as he approached the table, he blurted out, "That's 18th dynasty." And they asked him, "Well, how do you know? Looking at this piece of coral so quickly, how do you know?" He said, "This is an 18th dynasty chariot wheel. It's a 6-spoke chariot wheel, just like the chariot wheels found in King Tutankhamun's tomb. It is the same diameter. It is the same 6-spoke. And as we see in Heliopolis, in the 18th dynasty, it shows the 6-spoke chariot wheel. He knew exactly what it was, and so that chariot wheel is now buried in the Department of Antiquities. Don't expect that you'll ever see it in the light of day, because they still, most of them, don't want to admit that Israel was ever in Egypt. Because modern Egyptology is based on a ridiculous fairy tale. When the Syrian Greek general conquered Egypt and Israel, he requested a history of the people of the land, from both the Hebrews, the Israelites, and the Egyptians. So the Hebrews responded in this way. They got together 72 scholars who translated the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, from Hebrew into Greek. It became known as the Septuagint. That is what they presented the Syrian Greek conqueror as the history of the Jewish people. The Egyptians had one priest named Manetho concoct a history. He said for 10,000 years, gods ruled Egypt. After that, for 10,000 years, gods and men ruled Egypt. And after that, 10,000 more years, men ruled Egypt. Even in the Egyptian records, the oldest records of Manetho vary in over 1,800 names of pharaohs and gods. The Egyptians didn't even treat this as being legitimate. They knew it was a fairy tale, but yet modern Egyptology is based on the fairy tale rendition of one priest, Manetho, while the rest of the world scoffs at the Hebrew Scriptures, which gives an accurate detail. And that is what all modern biblical criticism is based on, Egyptology. Well, tonight we are going to look at the Hebrew Scriptures, and we're going to see the reality of these things. And here on your screen you see that we too have done our investigations in the Red Sea. Here I am in the sailing vessel. Actually, I have in my hands the directions, how you sail this thing. But, you know, we do the best with the equipment that we have. And I have a trick up my sleeve, of course, because I know that Moses did something with his staff and parted the Red Sea, so I bring my staff along, but Turns out that mine didn't work. Sometimes it's just better left to the professionals, and so that's why I want to introduce you to this gentleman. This gentleman's name is Leonard Moeller. Leonard Moeller was introduced to Ron Wyatt while he was still alive, and Ron Wyatt shared some things with Leonard Moeller that then kindled a fire in his heart, and Leonard Moeller has now taken it far beyond what Ron Wyatt could even imagine. Because Leonard Moeller is a scientist with Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, Sweden. Karolinska Institute is the laboratory that awards the Nobel Prize in Science. This is not a backyard chemistry shop. This is the most prestigious laboratory in the world, and Leonard Moeller is a serious scientist that is recognized all over the world. Leonard Moeller went down to the crossing site with the most modern research vessels and equipment, the finest that money can buy, and with underwater robotic dive cameras, went down and drove these high-definition cameras among the coral-encrusted remains of Pharaoh's chariots and army. I spoke to Leonard about a month ago, and he told me that he has analyzed coral all over the world. But he said that right there at the Nueva crossing site, it is like an underwater junkyard. It is like a battlefield which is locked in time, and you see right angles, you see the circles, you see the remains of Pharaoh's chariots and army, and now we're going to let Leonard Moeller take you on this journey along the bottom of the Red Sea.
In the spring of 2000, a robotic camera was lowered into these waters for the first time.
This has never been done. No one have been in the area at all with a remote control camera.
The robotic camera's survey revealed many shapes and objects familiar to Moeller, including coral formations with right angles, arches, discs, and straight shafts fused into larger masses that had the appearance of twisted wreckage.
Now, when we have been able to go back and forth with a remote control camera, we can repeatedly see that these strange structures we are looking for are there. Not at one place, but you see them again and again and again. Situations where you see something that looks like an axle, a hub, something that looks like a wheel, and you say to yourself, this is not a coral reef, this is a coral growth on an artifact. And that is what's different to me when I compare corals at other locations around the world.
Since the earliest explorations at Nueva, one distinctive type of formation has often been identified on the sea floor. A slender, table-like structure, sometimes standing on end, with a coral-encrusted base, a straight shaft, and a circular top.
It's a 90-degree angle, a right angle, between something that looks like an axle and the wheel. And you can see this in different varieties, and it looks very different from normal coral growth. And it is like a man-made structure with a coral growth on it.
In the midst of them, Pan Tien photographed this circular object attached to what appears to have been a broken axle or hub. This discovery was significant for two reasons. Pan Tien had documented the coral-encrusted form of a wheel with dimensions similar to ancient Egyptian artifacts directly across from the proposed Nueva crossing site. Her find also provided independent confirmation of earlier evidence establishing wheel-like formations on both coasts of the Red Sea in accordance with descriptions in the biblical record.
And the Lord looked down on the Egyptian army, and he made the wheels of their chariots come off.